What's up, everybody? It's Greg Birch with Delta Financial, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching from sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And we bring on guest speakers. Today, I've got the honor and pleasure of welcoming someone as a good friend of ours from Apex, Mr. Taylor Symmank.
What's going on?
What's going on?
Even got applause. I love that. That's
I didn't bring
awesome.
out the applause for you, bro. I didn't bring out the
applause. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. How you been, man?
I've been good. Things are going great. We just had actually, speaking of Apex, we had an event just recently. We met a lot of cool people, so it was fun. Got to catch up with some friends that I hadn't seen in a little while too. So that's always nice.
That's fantastic, man. I wasn't able to go to the event, but I will be going to those events here soon. But no,
awesome.
I saw a lot of the pictures and the content that people were posting about. Looked like you were on stage speaking at one point, which is awesome.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It's one of my goals. Kind of continue on. I do a lot of it in the high schools and a lot of different things like that. Just obviously from career that I had, I guess, before this, you could say. We'll probably get into some of that, but I did a lot of that going and doing more community work, stuff like that. So now I'm transitioning into the business side of it, definitely moving that way as well. So hopefully there'll be more of those in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So to introduce Taylor, I'm gonna read a little bit of his bio so that for those of you that don't know who he is. So Taylor was he was in the NFL and he transitioned into sales. And right now, Taylor spends time with some of the world's top performers in sports and in business. Now, Taylor aims to help others break through what is keeping them stuck so that they can live their best lives and ultimately unleash their full potential. Taylor has been featured in major media outlets such as Sirius XM Radio, ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS Sports, Bleacher Report, the Dallas Morning News, New York Post, Washington Times, and Sports Illustrated. He's been everywhere. Thank you so much, Taylor, for coming on board, man. Let's dig into it, man. Where do you want to start?
Hey, we start anywhere. I'm an open book in that regard. I just love it because when I started as a kid and growing up, I didn't always have, which is kind of we'll get into as well, probably. I didn't always have like mentors of people in my life. I didn't have like the good circle, right? And I talk about that a lot, actually, just having the right circle in your life. Because one thing I realized when I left sports, I mean, as a kid, that was the thing I focused on. I was like, I want to play in the NFL. I still have the piece of paper, actually. I was 12 years old when I wrote it down. I was like, I want to play in the NFL. And I kept it for, I don't know why, but I just had it. And I found it basically a couple months ago. And because I knew I had it. And I found it, and then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? This is where it all started, right? So I talked about goals and things. But the power of environment, because once I finished playing sports, I realized that I had coaches, I had staff. But when you're a player, you're like, man, coaches don't even play. Like, I'm the one playing, in your mind, right?
Yeah.
And then when I got out, I was like, I need to find that around outside of business. Like, who are some people I can hang out with that are the right people? Because if you're on a team, you have 90 guys that you're all, shooting for the same mission. When you step out in life, it was like, that flips the script really pretty quick. Mm-hmm. So, we'll probably get into some of that. But, yeah, that was the one thing that I kind of talk on a lot is just the power of environment, which is great because I love being on podcasts like this, getting around like-minded people, vision, goals, in alignment, and trying to be the best version of themselves, which you mentioned. So I love it. I'm all for anything, basically.
Absolutely. And so let's jump in first. Like, let's talk a little bit about your NFL career and how did that happen? How did you, I love that you wrote it down, because that is a perfect example of the power of manifestation, of law of attraction in your life, and the power of goal setting, really, like writing things down and making it real, and kind of it almost drives your actions to make it happen. I talk about this a lot with my team, and I've talked about it in plenty of podcasts, but talk about how you were able to achieve that from the time that you were that 12-year-old boy writing it down until it happened.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when I wrote it down, like, funny enough story, and I'll make it short, is I wanted to play receiver. I was like, that was my goal, play receiver in the NFL. Now I was white, I was 5'9", and I wasn't fast at the time when I graduated high school, which that's usually when you get recruited, right? So at the time I was like, well, I don't know how, but I wrote it down, obviously at 12, so I'm gonna keep going. The vision's still, the NFL. I also kicked and punted. I didn't punt in high school yet, but I kicked, and I just did it because I played soccer growing up and so forth. So, but on the note, my point of bringing that up was I wrote out, I want to play in the NFL, I want to play receiver, and if I have to, I'll kick. Like I literally wrote it out. And basically what ended up happening is I didn't get recruited because I was short, right? And slow, right? Like the things you don't want as a receiver,
Yeah.
And I ended up getting, and once I got to college, I actually grew. I was 6'3", went up to 200 pounds, went down to running a 4.4 in the 40. I was like, where was this when I needed it to get recruited? But by that time, it was just about being the most athletic specialist at my time in the country, which I was able to do. So I kind of used all those gifts to help me. So it was never wasted. But it's just funny when I wrote it down, I was like, I want to play in the NFL as a receiver. If I have to, I'll kick. So that's what I ended up doing.
So you ended up being a punter. I love it.
Yeah.
And transitioning, what was the biggest thing that you learned? What did you take away
from sports or from that process?
From sports, and even your time getting into and during the NFL?
Man, there's a lot. I kind of mentioned one of them. It is the power of environment. The more I was in business and I made that transition, because it's hard. I talked to a lot of athletes that just like they're I call it mastering the transition, whether it could be from a job, going to the next career, or you move into a different company, or whatever it may look like. But for athletes, like you're doing something for 26 years, 27 years, 30 years, whatever it looks that is for you. And then it's like, hey, it's done. Figure out what's next. Like you don't really know anything else unless you've like had people in your life showing you different things. You've been dabbling in different things, so you have a good transition. Or if you leave college and it's like, well, I didn't make it. Now what? Because my main focus wasn't school. Let's just be honest. With most athletes, it's playing.
Yeah.
So that process was like, I don't know what to do. And I think the biggest thing I did learn is that I needed to have my team. I needed to create my team, whether it be like the people I want at my table. I wanted to create a table of basically kind of the way a company structures. They have like their C-suite people, right? The people they have in their life. Like I needed to create that for me personally. In football and in structured sports, they create that for you. You got a head coach, you got staff, you've got a personal coach, you've got obviously teammates around your team, and they probably bring in, if you're at the high level, which we were thankfully, they bring in motivational speakers, they bring like Eric Thomas's of the world. Like you have all those things structured for you, but then when you're done, you got to do the structuring yourself. Like no one's coming in to be like, hey, you know what, team meeting, like, for yourself. Hey, personal meeting, you got to watch film. Like no one's coming in to do that for you.
Yeah.
It's like they handed you the CEO spot and said, hey, you're now the CEO of your life. So, but what that means is you got to have C-suite people. So the key for that was like surrounding with people, getting the right people in my environment or at my table, or who I wanted, to be more like, if you will. I think that was the biggest takeaway for the transition piece.
Yeah.
Now sports wise, man, I learned so many lessons. I could go on and on and on just from playing, and the shift mindset wise that I had to have, especially I want to play receiver. It's a totally different position than punting and kicking. And I didn't learn how to punt until I got to college, because they're like, hey, we're not bringing in a kicker. We're not bringing in a punter. And I knew how to kick. So like, we need you to figure it out. And I was like, well, I got 3 months to figure it out before I go to college. And of what I did a lot of more in the NFL, which is just crazy to think about. In 5 years, I was like going from not ever playing to, being top 32 teams in the league, top 32 player in the league or in the country, really. But it's just really that kind of mindset of things, where it was the shift of, obviously you have, let's say 50 plays, average receiver, if you're, a starter, versus maybe 1 or 2 plays a game. Not lucky for you, not lucky for the offense, if you're a punter out there for 4 or 5 times, but you get only minimal shots, and you may get one that can define your career. If you miss too many field goals in a row, they cut you. Your dream's over. Like that's it. You don't get, a rebound shot. You don't get to like, oh, I'm just gonna go out there and kick it again. Like
Pressure's on.
Yeah. So it made me focus on being present in the moment, and understanding that I can't let moments pass just because, I'm here, I showed up. Like that doesn't work. If you don't execute, it doesn't matter in that position.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned from sports.
You're going over so much that I want to break out. I love how you're talking about that transition piece and how difficult it was. Like at one point you're this, and then it's just like you come out and it's like, okay, now what? That's very relatable with probably many other industries. But I know for me in the military,
Yeah.
As a military officer, you come in. I didn't I didn't care about what degree I got because I knew I'm going to go be an officer in the
Mhm.
Army and I'm going to serve and I'm probably going to spend my career there and this, that, the other. Things change. I end up getting out, and now I get out and I had this great job, career serving the nation, doing what I loved, leading soldiers, and then I get out and it's just like, now what? Right. And
Yeah.
it was that transition's tough, man. It was like really difficult period of time for a good year, year and a half, 2 years that I was struggling to kind of find my way in order to know exactly what it is. Almost like finding a new passion and purpose in life.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
Because you work so hard for one thing, and
Yeah.
then it's everything you do is geared around that.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. So I love that you're talking about that same struggle that you went through it too, as being in professional sports. So we're all alike, ladies and gentlemen. We're all alike.
yeah.
Uh,
Thank you for your service, by the way.
oh, man, thank
I
you for
love
your
it.
support. It was my pleasure. I love doing what I did. Um, but you're talking about having to perform and really being in the moment. Let me ask you, when you're in a game, when you were in a game, and it was just like the pressure's on, what's going through your mind? How do you focus and like tune out the world
Yeah.
so that you can perform when the time arrives?
I've gotten this question before, and it's crazy because it's the simplest answer. And everybody's like, "Is that really it?" It's for me and for most guys, like 'cause obviously did a lot of coaching and training and stuff, is just breathing.
Yeah.
And because what happens, and if you really dial it back down, even just let's say a kick or a punt or a snap, it's 2.5 seconds is what it takes from the time they snap it to the time you kick it. If you think, you'll mess
You're
up.
done. You're
You
done.
don't have enough time you don't have enough time to think. Like, there literally is not enough time for you to formulate a thought and do all of that. At that point, you're really just breathing and letting your body do what you trained it to do.
Did
And
you
you're
have
not
a specific pattern that you did every single time?
like so if for breathing wise, let's just say
Yeah.
I'm going up fourth down. Basically on third down, I start taking a deep breath on the sideline. As I'm going out in the field, I'd start obviously you get the adrenaline, and that's you want to have a mix of both, right? You want to have the crowd, the environment, it to be your like that little amp that you
Mhm.
get.
Mhm.
Because that you can use that. You just can't have that in practice. So you get to use it in the game. So it's you want to control the amp, but you don't want it to control you. And the way you do that is just obviously breathing, being present in the moment, but at the same time using all that extra umph you got to generate it to what you do. So
Mhm.
really it's just breathing, and you start jogging on the field. I'm thinking about as I'm walking out there, I'm like, okay, cool, we're positioned here. Where do I want to put it? I'm thinking before I get there when I have to snap. So like all my thinking happens. These lights switch on and off, so I'll switch back on. But all the thinking happens as I'm running onto the field.
Yeah.
And so by the time I put my feet in it and everybody gets set up, I've stopped thinking at that point. Now it's just about executing. So when as I'm running out, they just kind of give you an insight. It's like I'm running out, I'm looking, okay, this is where I want to put the ball. I kind of want to look like this. I want it to angle because I know we're going left. And I'm thinking all that, how I want to position the drop. I'm doing all that there. Then when I get out there, I'm positioning my body to how I want it, I'm envisioning the snap coming here and me putting it out.
Mhm.
And then at that point, I'm literally dialing in to just focus on catching snap. Like it's like piece by piece. So now it's like step 1, 2, 3. So every punt basically for me was 3 steps. Catch the ball, put it out, make sure I see the laces. I can envision in my mind actually right now of like, because I've done I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of drops. Where I just put the ball out and I can see it and then I can see where my foot hits it. So I'm envisioning those things as the ball is about to be snapped. And then I catch it in that 2.5 seconds. You can't really stop it, right? So it's just like you don't really think about all that stuff. It happens, and you see the ball basically flying and how you want it to, transition or turn over or whatever you want it to look like. Essentially, because every punt's different. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what it happens. It's just really the simple things. Understanding that all my training at that point has happened. Now it's
Mhm.
for me to perform. Because if you hesitate, you get run over, is what they would say in the NFL all the time. It's the same thing in whether it be golf, whether it be, because we get tied, kickers and punters get tied to golfers a lot because it's a very mental game.
Mhm.
Physical obviously is important, but it is just letting your body do it, let the body work. And that's where all the training comes into play.
And the reason why I asked this question is because as Taylor was breaking this down, as he's talking about physiological responses that he is doing every single time, and psychological responses that he's running through his mind every single time. So I'm willing to bet that every single time that you had a kick, it was the exact same thing. Even the
Yep.
pattern of how you breathe. Like you probably walked up on the sideline at the exact moment knowing, okay, it's time. And you probably
Mhm.
started breathing the exact same way, which puts your mind and your body physiologically in the moment of what you're used to perform. And
Correct.
it just everything kind of takes off. So like for instance, for me, and this is a good tactic to do. High performers do this all the time. So I run every day. Okay. I don't like to run. I hate running actually, but it's part of my workout regimen, and I'm about to run a marathon. But even runners do this where they'll have like a specific song that they really like that like motivates them. So I have one song that I play even when I don't want to run. I'll start my workout and I'll play it. And as soon as that song plays, it's like my body, my mind, everything knows it's time to run, whether I
Yep.
want to or not. And I get that urge because I've done it so many times. It's almost like muscle memory. Like I hear that
Absolutely.
song and I'm like, time to go. And I start running. And before I know it, the run's over. And I'm like, and the
Mhm.
whole time I'm like, man, I don't want to run today. Like my body's sore,
Right.
I'm tired. I'm gonna run for like 20 minutes today, and then I'm gonna do some other exercise for the other 25. This, that, the other. That song starts, all that bleeds away.
Mhm.
And so, I love that you're kind of breaking this down because this can be used in any industry, and any, like,
Absolutely.
for instance, if you're in sales, you're going up to a house, you want to be able to perform, and you don't want to be sitting there in your head while you're talking to this client. You could have a specific thing that you do, like Ed Milet talks about, like, before he gets on stage, he snaps his fingers right by his ear, and it gets him
Mm.
in the zone. Right before he goes on stage, he snaps his fingers, and that gets him in the zone before he goes out on stage. Before you go into a home, you could do I mean, just whatever physiological response
Yeah.
you want. But like I used to like hang. I would just like hang from my waist and let my body hang, like almost like I'm letting my arms hang down to my feet, and that would let the blood kind of rush a little bit. It would relieve some nerves. And I would do it for like a couple seconds, go up, knock, be good, because it would take the nerves away, or
Mm.
it changed my perspective of like anxiousness to more excitement.
Yeah.
But it's a great tactic, and it's a great strategy to use for high performers. I love it.
Absolutely, and I think the point you're making too is like the connection between that emotion, like the physical piece of things and the mental piece. A lot of times, what takes the mental shift is the physical thing we do. Like
Yes.
obviously, you mentioned like the click. It's because now those feelings, like it's how it's how our brains operate, right? It's where we're inputting, we're putting the pattern back into place,
Mhm.
and basically, we're all a series of patterns. And so, if we can get ourselves back into the pattern that we want to be in, then all of a sudden everything like that whole I could just see it right now, him doing that because it just clicks like, "Oh, that noise, I know I recognize." Our brains operate in patterns, and when we set ourselves up to put in the pattern,
Mhm.
then we run the path that we need to run, right? So,
Exactly. Your body just knows, like, this is the path I'm about to I'm about to do. So,
yep.
I love that you broke that down. And is that something that you've transitioned into your business career? Do you have the same kind of, hey, in order to get in the right mindset, like maybe before a big business meeting or a sales presentation or something like that, that you have the same processes that you do, the same habits, um, or anything like that that you execute that get you into that execution mode?
Yeah, for sure. For me, the biggest thing, and it sounds simple, but it's the truth, is like when I know and I spend all my time in preparation, the more I prepare, the better I'm going to feel. Obviously, it's common sense, right? But for me, it's the confidence of knowing I know everything in my mind of what I'm going to present about. And
Mhm,
so I'll spend and have the confidence in what I know. So that when I walk in there, because I'm obviously going to have, whatever it may be. When I was playing, it was the same deal. Walk out there like you're in front of 100,000 fans, which are a lot of friends and family. So if you mess up, they could just make fun of you for the rest of your life. like,
yeah.
like there's that, or they could put on the media and say, "Hey, look, he just shanked a punt." And now I don't know how many millions of people see that, and my name's attached to it along with my picture. They probably show because
Yeah.
the camera always follows through on the sideline if you mess up or if you do something great. But either one, so it's just like now my name or my face is attached to what I just did, and I
Yeah.
may not get another opportunity this game to do that again. And so it's just like me for that moment is going into that and realizing, okay, cool. I've everything I've done up to this point in time, that's why everything before that moment is so important, is because when I step into that, it's like, I'm here. Now it's time for me just to play. And Michael Jordan has I think it's a 30 for 30. He talks about the aspect of like what that looks like and how he approaches a game. He's like, I run past everybody, I dominate everybody because I'm competing obviously with himself, is what he says. But then right after that, he's like, my focus is I've already prepared. Like this right now is for me to now maneuver myself however the game positions, because I'm not thinking at that point. I'm just reacting in a way that's more of anticipation, right?
Mhm.
It's not really reacting like, oh, this is coming. I didn't expect it. It's more, I knew you were about to do that. I'm moving here. It's the same idea. It's like, okay, cool. I know what's going to happen here. And same thing in business meetings, right? So if I know this is going to be, I'm imagining, even it's funny enough. I was doing a speech. When was it? I forget when it was. And I planned for both because I was the first time speaking in this place. And I didn't know if they're gonna have the hand, like the mic that goes over your ear or the one you hold or maybe like in a stand. So I practiced all of them. I practiced if they had nothing and I wasn't holding anything in my hand so I could use my hands. I practiced it if I held a mic, and I practiced it if I had to stand in front of like an actual podium, so that whatever came at me, I was ready and I didn't feel uncomfortable. Like, oh, I didn't really, do I stand behind this or do I walk off to the side? Like I planned all of those beforehand. So whatever came with me, I was good for every alternative. So it's just kind of that idea of like my preparation gave me the confidence of like, you can throw anything at me. Same thing if the screen went down and I was doing PowerPoints, do I have it well enough memorized that
Mhm.
cool, I don't need that. I got you. Like that would give me confidence that no matter what happened or my mic didn't work, am I going to be able to talk loud enough? Like all the different things that could go wrong, I'm still going to perform at the highest level. That would make me feel even more confident when I walk into that or that phone call or whatever it may look like.
So, have you heard? This remind me of a speech I heard or a story that I'd heard from somebody. Have you heard the Andy Frisella when he talks about the axe and the chopping the tree and how he compares it to entrepreneurship?
I haven't. No.
So it's really quick. I can break it down really quick.
Yeah.
So he talks about how entrepreneurship is just like an axe and chopping a tree. And he says, he's like, first and foremost, like there's four things when it comes to chopping a tree. He's like, first is you have to have a sharp axe. That's you preparing, right? And you have to prepare. He's like, and that could be reading, that could be practicing scripts, that could be whatever it is that your business does, but you have to prepare, because if you're chopping with a dull axe because you haven't been preparing, you're not going to chop the damn tree down. It's just not going to
Right.
happen. So the preparation is you basically sharpening your axe, like the old adage of like, I would rather sharpen my axe for 3 hours and chop for one than chop
Mhm.
for 4 hours. So the next is like you have to actually chop. It is like, so that you got to do the work, right?
Mhm.
You got to do the work, you got to chop. Next is that you have to chop in the same place. He's like, if you're chopping and
Mm.
you're all over the place, you're not gonna chop the tree down, not effectively anyways. Like it
Yeah.
eventually it would, but you have to chop in the same exact spot. So that comes part of the preparation, but it's also like not being thrown all over the place because of emotions or whims or like shiny objects. You got to stay focused on what it is that you're trying to accomplish and keep hitting that spot. And he said, and then eventually what happens is the last thing is you've chopped so much that it gains momentum that the tree's going to eventually fall, that you can just basically
Mm.
push it over.
That's good. Yeah.
So I've always taken that away. And when I hear people, I love people talking about preparation, because a lot of people don't think about that when it comes to their business,
Mm.
and like the amount of preparation sometimes that you have to do. For instance, public speaking. So you're a public speaker. I also do public speaking. Oh, whoops. I also do public speaking. And in fact, I'm going to be on stage next Thursday.
Oh, nice. There you
Right,
go.
I'll be on stage next Thursday in Phoenix. Um, how do you prepare? Because I've heard a lot of different things. I've spoken in front of groups before multiple times. This is the first like big one, but I've
Mhm.
spoken to smaller groups like 100 or 200. Just kind of impromptu or lightly
Yeah.
preparing. What about you? How do you talked about preparing like all the different ways? Do you have a specific system that you use?
Yeah, so what I do, I love when I can have PowerPoints, but I try to, when I do prepare, I'd have it as if I would go from the start to finish and I'd run it through and I have nothing to look at.
Mhm.
One, because a lot of, depending upon the situation or what it looks like and the scenario where I'm at, sometimes you see like the study the most effective speakers in certain settings, depending on what talk it is, right? They don't have a PowerPoint. They're speaking because they're feeling the room and they have intention. They can maneuver, and a lot of things just come to them that may not be on the PowerPoint. Right.
Yes.
Because my natural tendency is I'm very somewhat analytical, you could say, just by the way that I operate and things like that. So if I have something I'm looking at, I'm following it step by step by step by step by step. But
Yep.
when I do kind of get the whole picture of it and I memorize kind of what I want to talk about and the bullet points I want to hit, I give myself this freedom to fill in certain spots from what comes up and not feel awkward. Because if I fall off, if I have it, set up on, let's just say I was reading off a paper, then because that's how I started. I started where I was like, I gotta say everything I was gonna, wrote down. And it would, if I missed one, I would be like, wait, I'm confused. I don't know where I'm at. Right. And so I'm better at just being myself, which most speakers are, right? When you're yourself, you let things
Yes.
flow out. You're like, dang, like I didn't even write that down, but that was really good. Right. So you give yourself the permission to do that. So when I am preparing for it, I leave space for myself to have that in the moment, because if I can get myself in the moment, the faster I can do that, the quicker I can get to that space, which is my goal. It's the whole thing of like when I would breathe and I would start thinking and I put myself in that moment, I want to do the same thing when I'm speaking. So like the first thing that I do, I'm trying to get myself to the point where I'm like, I'm internally, because most of the time what we do is we get too in our head instead of in ourself in the moment, which means we can feel the moment. And we can feel the moment. We're a lot better and more effective speaker. And there's a lot of room I have to make in this category just in speaking in general, but that's what helps me of like, I'm going to be here present, which means that now I can feel everything. I can feel like, oh, like based upon how it feels in the room, I can go here, or maybe I don't include that. I'm going to do this instead because this is what everybody's like nodding to. Yeah. Let me expand upon that because everybody's nodding. Right. So like there's certain things, if I were to just follow a script, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I may not be, cognizant of what's going on. So when I do the speaking kind of thing, it's that is kind of how I operate with it.
Yeah. That's more my style too. So I've talked to people. I talked to a guy recently who was like he was an old style public speaker, and he was like, "You got to do the rule of 7." Like, what the hell is that? And he said, "Well, you got to practice the speech in your mind, and you got to say it in your mind 7 times without messing up. Then you practice it out loud, looking in the mirror 7 times without messing up. Then you practice it in front of somebody 7 times without messing up in a row. And when you can do that, then you can speak on stage and you know your material." And I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, okay, I could see that, but like, I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm gonna do that. To be honest, that's just not my style. Like, I'll write out a speech. It'll have bullet points with like some notes. I'm gonna say it a few times, but it's gonna be something that I know pretty intrinsically because each time I say it, I'm gonna say it slightly differently,
Right.
but I'm getting the same point across.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm the same way where I would feed off of a room. Whereas like if I see someone not, I'm like, yeah, you like that, don't you? Exactly. Oh, you know what? Let's go and stay here for a second. And then I might,
Right.
but I'm not going to write that out.
Right. So yeah, the paper would be 30 pages long. I'm not going to
Yeah.
memorize 30 pages. And
Yeah.
that's where it goes back to preparation of like, we'd actually talked about this in a meeting today we did, is that the aspect of how we, not only preparation, but we become like if we want to become somebody, we actually have to, obviously the word become is first be, you have to be that person or to become them, right? But the idea of if I have a goal out here that I want to achieve and I want to get to this point, it may require a new version of myself. It may require a higher version or a different way of thinking, and whatever it may look like in the
Yeah.
category, whatever. Well, that same thing when applies to my speaking side of things. So like the preparation may not be the week before. The preparation was my entire life before. So it's being able
Exactly.
to draw upon all those things, and then also understanding if I want, my goal is to speak more, my goal is to do those things every single day, attack that, because the speech that I want to give may require all the information I'm learning right now. That may not happen for another month or another year, because the things I can draw upon and call upon will now be an effective speech then. So it's not like what naturally happens. And this is why I talk about preparation. It's like, cool, I got a speech. Let me prepare. Like,
Yeah.
what all can I read? Like at that point, to be honest with you, they pay you for your notes, right? So every speaker, they get paid on their notes of life, their notes of learning, all that. Like you cannot study enough in a week to have, a valuable enough of notes, let alone you be able to like communicate that in a way where it comes from in here because it's yours and it's your story. You understood it, you walk it out versus someone who regurgitated it out of a textbook. Now it could be effective, but it's not going to be as deep because there's not, you can feel when someone's like, yeah, that's his story. Like that's his, he
That's
gets it.
yeah, that was a unique presentation. Yeah. I know.
Right.
I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the way that you're saying is it's like, you're not preparing the week before, you're preparing this is, you've been preparing your life for that speech in order to all
Right.
the experiences that you've been through. And another way to say the whole, like, in order to become something, you have to first be at first, is disposition before position.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
have to start acting. If you want a specific position in life, you have to start doing the actions ahead of time. You can't expect to be like, oh, well, I'm going to be the fucking CEO one day, and then
Yeah.
like, and you don't do anything. You don't act like the CEO in your life, and all of a sudden you get the position. You think all of a sudden, oh, I'm now endowed with all these experiences and knowledge, and I have all these executive responsibilities that I can manage effectively, and I've never done it before. It doesn't work that way.
No, but that is a big misconception right there.
It
Most people,
is.
it's like, oh, cool. When I'm the CEO, everything's cool. Did you
No.
like that's just a piece of paper? I can give you a title right now. What would you do? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, exactly. Like
Yeah.
and at that point, you outgrow your position, or you didn't grow enough to get your position. Now, sooner or later, you're probably not going to be able to hold that position either. But
You're gonna be that punter that's like, it's making mistakes and their faces on the news. It's like,
yeah,
look at this
exactly.
guy. He botched the game.
Right, which is the worst place to be because now everybody knows, including people. You walk the worst thing ever. Thankfully, it's never happened to me, but I have buddies and stuff that this happens to. Is like whether it be college, whether it be pros. Let's just say college. You walk onto campus in your classroom, and everybody is giving that look. It's like, dang, like that sucks, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like that's that guy. That's the guy that missed the
You can
game.
like feel their eyes from like
One
across
hundred
the
percent.
field looking at you, and they're like, oh man.
Yeah, right, exactly. Everybody like, "They're talking about me, I know it." Like, that's awful. So, like, it's the whole thing of, like, pain versus pleasure, right? When what we avoid and what we resist in life is based upon that. A lot of guys is like, "Well, I don't want that, so I'm gonna over prepare." That's a good response, right? Because I
Exactly.
don't want this effect forever, let alone they're always gonna remember that too. So, absolutely.
So you did the transition out of the NFL. What are you doing now? What's your business in now?
Yeah, so when I first transitioned out, I got into insurance, the P&C sides, like home, auto, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Was my first real kind of mentor in my life that I was like, man, you're successful in business. I want to be around you. It was my first attempt to what I was talking about, like getting the right people at my table.
Yeah.
And so I did. I learned a lot. He basically he's opening up a insurance agency, and I went with him and helped learn, like just to learn the part of it, how to take the test, how to do all of that. And I had no idea about any of it, but I was like, makes sense. Residual income after you build, you take care of people. Okay, cool. Let's do it. That makes logical sense. And so I did that for a couple of years. And then I still have some clients that I have, but it's really close to me and referral business. It's not really active at this point too much at this because my focus now, about a couple of years after the start of the insurance, I got it with Apex. And that's my main thing right now is what I'm doing and building that out. And you're obviously familiar with Apex. So that's my main focus. And growing because that's what I wanted forever. When I got done, I was like, I want something like this. And I found it was like, there's a lot of other people like me. Because the more people I talk to, especially just even in the sports world alone, athletes in the off season looking what's next, like they just didn't have that, but they wanted to be in business. Because when I got out of sports and kind of stopped playing, my thought was like, man, everybody else I know that's successful, they're in some form of or facet of business, whether they're the owner, whether the CEO, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're an entrepreneur. Like that's what they were. It's like, what do you do? What do you do? And there was all consistent. They were all in, business and doing something or had businesses or multiple streams of income. And so I was like, I got to figure out this game of business. I figured out sports. I figured out the rules because football, well, just like any sports in general, has a set of rules. Once I figured that out, you can be really successful. Well, I
Mm.
didn't know the rules to life. I didn't know the rules to business. So I was like, who can teach me the rules to business? And then once you continue to hone that in, then you get really good at it, right? It's the whole thing about chopping the axe right at the same spot over and over again. Well, if I don't even know what part of the tree to hit, I'm just hitting these random spots. And I'm like, well, no, I need to hit this exact spot here over and over again. But if I don't have the right information and I'm using, what if I'm using the wrong side of the axe? I'm using the other side because I'm like, I don't know how to use this, the rule of using an axe. If I didn't know what it was, I
Yeah.
didn't know how it's supposed to be, I'd probably use the other side, whoever knows, right? And I'm like, dang, like this just isn't working. Well, it's because you got the wrong set of rules. Flip it over, use it like this. And so the information is important. Having those people maybe to show you that is what is so important to have. And
Mm.
so for me, it's like once I found the spot, okay, cool. This is the rules. This is how it works. Now it's just honing in those things. And all of a sudden, like you said, the momentum of the tree completely flips. And then all of a sudden you're like, dang, how did I get here? You know?
Yeah. And then before you know, you're like having all the success, and then you can just duplicate and replicate it
Right.
over and over again and kind of scale it over time. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how long you been with Apex?
I've been here actually not even that long. I'm in my 10th month. So
Okay. So
randomly
you
enough,
you
yeah.
joined a little bit before me then.
Yeah.
Because I joined like August,
Okay.
September this year.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was around that time frame. So for those people watching that don't know what Apex is, give them a quick rundown of a little bit like sales pitch, I guess, what it is.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, in summary, because what we do in Apex is not only we have like events, we have it's kind of like a big mastermind, if you will, but
Mm.
it's like events. We have not only different things from like breakout sessions, online kind of like Zoom calls like this, different one-on-ones, and all that good stuff. But the whole point of it is to be surrounded by like-minded individuals looking to become the best version of themselves, not only in life but in business and health and all the different areas that are obviously we deem as like the pillars of life, right? But there's different tiers to Apex. So obviously different tiers have different agendas or goals with that. But the goal is to, help build your machine, build your business, your brand, if you will, and then to scale that and then get to a point where you're, having to not only manage that, but getting to invest and do all these different. So it's like the cycle of what you would call, you say business or entrepreneurship
Mm.
is teaching people throughout each one of those cycles. So that's what it is. And just getting around other people that are not just in your industry, but in other industries too, that are being successful because you know, like surrounds themselves with like. So if you not only and if you're the top dog in your room, you probably need to continue to keep growing. Otherwise, you're going to stay the same, if not, backslide. That's how life works. And
Yeah.
you can just look at nature. If you get older and if you kind of stay the same for too long, it starts decaying. That's how our bodies work. There's a shift there. The same thing happens in our life and in our environment. So that's why I always talk about environment being so critical because I had it in my life and I know exactly how important and pivotal it is to getting to where you want to be. Not only environment externally, right? It's environment internally. It's the same thing. You have to create those things. There's like a great analogy I actually heard at an event. I don't know if you've met him, but Jake Fruget, he's an Apex exec.
I've seen him on some posts on there.
Yeah, and so I've never heard it before like this, but it made so much sense. It's like in talking about the mind and the internal mind. It's like if you have a bottle of water and it's got dirt in it, and you're like, well, how do I get the dirt out? Right? Without like, just tipping it over and all that kind of like you couldn't restart, right? So you basically pour clean water in. The more water you clean, eventually that dirt's going to just surface and come out, and then you're going to have a clean cup of water or a clean bottle of water. Well, the same thing is true in life, and that's the same when we write our goals down, write our visions down. We kind of meditate on those, if you will. What's happening is we're brainwashing ourselves with the things that we want and we need, which is the clean part of it, the clean way of thinking.
I
And
like
so
that.
now all of a sudden, the way to get out your old dirty thinking, if you will, is to fill it with the stuff that's clean, the stuff that
Yeah.
you know is good, and eventually it will go away. And then now you're like, cool, got a clean cup of water. So that's what we have to view it as that way. And I thought it was when I mentioned it was like literally just recently, I was like, dang, that's so good analogy because we think like, oh, it's good. The dirt's
Yeah,
just
I just got just dump it out. Well, it doesn't always work that way.
right,
So no, that's actually a really like I can imagine it. I
right.
was I
That's
was
what
literally I was literally thinking about water like kind of floating and the dirt kind of just pouring out little bit by little bit, and how over time it
yeah,
really does. You just have but it takes time. It's the
correct.
consistency factor of constantly putting that healthy, positive information into your brain, healthy in,
Right.
healthy out kind of thing.
It's a
Um,
perfect analogy too of what you talked about earlier, like law of attraction. Well,
yeah,
our brains operate input output. We're like computers, but a lot more sophisticated. So whatever I put in is going to come out. So if
yes,
I want to attract something, we'll put that in my mind or put that in my body, and I'm going to get the output of that. So if
yeah,
I have dirt in my mind, cool. I want clean, put clean in. All
yeah.
of it's going to clean's going to come out. So it's just
Everyone
yeah,
says they want clean, but they're not willing to do the work of like because it seems. I always tell people it's like this is like advanced level shit because it does like, and it's really not that advanced to be honest. It's pretty simple. It's really basic, but people think it's like that's it's not that easy. That's too simple. That doesn't work. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to agents, sales agents, and I'm like, if you write out your damn goal, like write out, I'm going to earn this much money in this time frame by doing these actions, and I'm going to give up this in order to get it. Straight like Think and Grow Rich style. You know what I'm saying? And you put
Yeah.
that on your wall and you read that every single day. I can guarantee you that you're either going to achieve it or you're going to get really damn close, because
Mhm.
you're putting it into, like, you're literally putting it in these healthy thoughts into your mind, and it drives your actions. It changes your subconscious thinking, and your subconscious will start searching the world to accomplish the thing that you set
Right.
out to accomplish now, because it's important to you. Taps into your reticular activating system, your
Yep.
RES. There's all these different scientific backings that talk about the brain, how it works, that this is applicable. But people are like, nah, it's too simple. I'm not going to write my goals. It's like, dude, I don't know a successful person out there that's like making the money that I want to make, that doesn't have a fucking vision board, that doesn't write out their goals, that doesn't like sit down and say, hey, for this next 6 months, we're going to do this, and literally write that shit out,
Mhm.
or have a vision
Mhm.
board of some type.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
why don't you, like, success leaves clues? There's breadcrumbs,
Yeah. It's
there's
because
similarities.
consistency is hard.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
why. And so no one wants the consistency piece. That's what separator is, in sports, especially from people ask me this all the time. It's like, what's the difference between college and pros? Consistency. That's it. It's the only thing. It's the same game. The rules are the exact same for the most part. There's a few that are different, but everything's the exact same.
Yeah.
Nothing is different from the time you're a little kid to the time you get to the very top of the level and the National Football League. The only thing that's different is how consistent and how they can call upon it in any single moment. That is literally the only difference. And that's the separator in life and business as well.
Yeah.
How can you call upon the best version of yourself more frequently than anybody else? Well, you have to be that person, right? You
Consistently,
can't.
day in and day out.
Yeah, you
You got to
can't.
be ready.
You have to be ready. There's no time to, like, this whole thing of like, you don't have to get ready when you stay ready, right? It's the whole thing people always say. It's that idea is like, well, if I want to be this person, or I want to be like that goal idea of myself. Ed Milet actually has a really good analogy of that. Like, when I die, I want to shake the person's hand. Have you heard that before?
I have, yeah.
Where it's so good because that's how, I mean, at the end of my life, I want to be like, that's who I could have. I don't want to be the person like, that's who I could have been. What
Yeah.
the heck was I doing? Like, I missed, like, I want to be that. Like, so it's the constant desire to be all that we can be. But yeah.
David Goggins has a similar one where he's like, when I was, when he's fat, or he's like, now that he looks back, he's like, why do I keep pushing and doing those things? He's like, well, he's like, if I had never done what I did when I was fat, and I stayed that way, and I'm 350, 400 pounds, and I die still cleaning out all these pest traps, and I get to heaven and I look and it's like, hey, look at this. And it's like Navy SEAL, combat veteran, motivational speaker, world renowned, ultra marathon racer, record breaker for pull ups. And he's going over, he's like, that ain't me. I didn't do that.
Mhm.
David Goggins, that ain't me. And they're like, yeah, that's what you were supposed to be.
Yeah. Let's see, that just hits deep.
That
That gives
is
me
deep, bro.
it
And
gives
then,
me
then you're like,
goosebumps.
and it's like, dude, he was there. He was that fat piece of shit that like did like gave up on everything, ate all the time, didn't want to do anything, and he just changed his life. And he's like, dude, that's why he like, dude, he gives zero fucks. He's like, dude, there's no excuse that you could give me that I
I
haven't
didn't already Yeah,
experienced.
that I already give myself, and
That
I
I
just
didn't give
went
myself.
overcame that. Yeah.
And everybody, I do believe that potential is unknown and unlimited. Everyone has an unknown and unlimited potential,
That's good.
and it just depends upon how it gets tapped into. And like, there's everyone has a different thing that has to happen to them almost always. Some very, very few people are just driven naturally and I would almost challenge that thinking that like something happened to them as a kid, like their parents, were really hard on them or something. But not many people are just driven naturally to always take the hard road, to push their limits, to find their potential. Like,
Right.
typically something has to happen in your life that forces you into this position where you're like, well, that was a terrible set of decisions to get me to this point. Like, this sucks. I'm
Yeah.
fucking done. Like, I'm ready for a change, and because you've experienced hell on earth in your mind. You've
Right.
experienced like what it's like to just be rock bottom, where you're like, okay, now I have to make a change. That lever in your mind kind of it becomes apparent where you can just grab it, crank it, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to do that change. Happened to me. It's happened to people that I know. It's happened to happened to Ryan Stewman, happened to David Goggins. Like, everyone has those demons in their past where something happened to where it forced them to start pushing their boundaries, become something else, and then share that with the world. And that's where the public speaking, kind of, to bring this back full circle, that's where most public speakers that are really successful, super famous, Eric Thomas, he was living on the fucking streets, digging out of trash cans and dumpsters, and now he's like one of the number one speakers in the world. You know, it's like, dude, because he's seen some shit, bro.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. And I hear this all the time with people that are speaking or writing a book or whatever it is. It's like, we have to realize how powerful our story is. No matter if we weren't homeless, no matter if we weren't playing in the NFL, no matter if we weren't in the military, like, because those are like, we could tag like, oh, well, you played in the NFL, or, oh no, you were homeless. You have a good story. So we don't take it as our own, and we have to realize our own story is so freaking powerful. If you were to, if someone were to look at your life and dissect every little thing and see like every little trial you went through, like, dang, bro, your story's deep. Like, everybody has that deep story for the most part. Everybody's a little different, right? But those stories are really deep. When you start owning your story, that's when you start making an impact, because that really is what comes down to play. It's like, okay, cool. Like, most of us discredit ourselves before we can ever have a chance to have credit that we want. Because we already discredit ourselves. Like, it's the whole thing of we attract. Well, if I can't attract anything, if I just literally put a lever right here, says I ain't going after that. Like, we literally just kill our dream immediately because we think we don't have a cool enough story. We think we don't qualify. Like, it's just not how it works. Like, if you see it, you can believe it. If you can believe it, it can come to pass. Like, it's just it's just how it works, And so there's constant things in my life I can refer back to how that proves itself over and over. I mean, look at the freaking paper I wrote when I was 12 years old as a kid. Like, the chances of making the NFL, let alone where I came from, like,
and knowing it at that time, writing it out at that time at 12 years old, I'm like, dude, I'm doing this.
But it's like I don't even know what the percentage is of what he makes in the NFL. Even if you just make a practice squad team, never do anything, like, it is even D1. Let's think just college, D1 college. That percentage is like, I don't even know if it's even 1% of people that everybody that plays football should play make a D1 school. Like, that is massive. So like, even those stories, like, well, I was just really good in college. Like, that's an amazing story. You got to see it as like all the different things that you did, and stop discrediting yourself of what's actually capable of it. So yeah, that's all one that will say with that. Because I was like, sucks.
People too often, they mistake obstacles for a lack of opportunity. And what they don't realize is that opportunity, everyone has the same fucking opportunity, period, and stuff. But then they see the obstacles in their life. And they're like, well, I can't do it because of this. Well, I don't have a good story. Everyone's got struggles, challenges that they're in their life, hardships that they can overcome, that they can then help people that are in the same exact position, because there's plenty out there, get through it as well.
Right.
And so too many people are like, well, you don't understand where I came from. I don't care what the color of your skin is, what your race is. I don't care where you were born and raised, who your parents were, what your financial situation was growing up. It doesn't matter, because you have the same opportunity. Now, your obstacles are going to be different. The challenges which you have to face are going to be different than challenges that I had to face, or different challenges that Taylor had to face, so on and so forth. But the opportunity is the same between all of us.
Right.
And so I see too often, like, well, you just don't understand. I've actually had so many conversations where it's like, but you don't know what it's like to be this, that, the other. You're right. And you don't know what it's like to be me. So, like, case in point, like, you could still do it. Do you live in the United States, one of the greatest countries in the entire world, in the history of the planet? Do you have a social security number? Can you get a bank loan? Do you,
right. Yeah.
It's the same opportunity. It may be challenging, may be difficult, but you can do it.
Right. Exactly. And because the problem that there is that they're focused on the things they can't do instead of the things they can do.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the flip. It's like, man, like all the things I can't
do. Wrong side of the X, bro. He's the wrong
Exactly.
side.
Right, and that's when, like, the shift, and it's like, "Oh, like, okay, cool, like, this is how I'm supposed to do it." But, yeah, that's usually where it's called we call it victim mentality, right? It's kinda fits in that spectrum of things of, like, "Man, like, I'm looking at all the things of why I can't." It's the whole point of discrediting yourself
Yeah,
before you even start. So you'll never get started, and then you'll have something you can hold against yourself and say, "Hey, this is why I didn't do it." And the reality is when you meet that person, right, and you're going to heaven, it's like, no, this is who you actually could have been despite all of those things. Actually, would have made you even better because you went through those.
yeah,
Like it makes you a deep, deep person because if you go through all that, like that's the reason we look at like an ET, we look at all these different people. It's like literally zero, bottom, and nothing, whatever. And you're like, then they went to became this. Where's my excuse? Right? Where do I can fit myself at any point in that, no matter how it feels, right?
yeah,
Same thing with, David Goggins. The aspect of that process is like, well, he kind of just debungled my thought process. Like that's
yeah,
why it's so important we tell the story of that. Because if David would never tell it, we couldn't relate. Like, well, he did it. Why can't I? And then we change the way of thinking. It's like, oh, then it goes from like, oh, I can't to like, well, he did. There must be a way. How do I do that now? And then now all of a sudden, now you got the momentum building. You're starting to use the right side of the axe, right? Like we're talking about. So
exactly.
it's a game changer.
And to wrap it up, if a lot of people have that victim mentality, and
Yeah.
that's just a fact of the matter.
And we all
Um,
go through it at some point.
yes,
And
yeah, yeah, believe
I
me,
went through it.
I have too. Many, many days, many
Yeah.
periods of time. But remember this: with a victim mentality, is that you have 100% success rate of making it through every single one of your bad days. You're already a victor. You've already like you just switch the perspective, literally change the lens in which you're viewing things and realize you could have two people having the same terrible bad day. And one person could be like, man, I made it through this. Like, I'm so thankful that I made it through this bad day, this bad week, this bad situation. And I've grown from it. And now I'm going to apply what I learned. And you could have another person go through that same exact situation and they would see, oh, poor woe is me. This always happens to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm
There's
bad
actually a
luck.
great
This, that, the other.
right, exactly. And so actually a great story by it. It kind of parallels a little different, but the same point is Tony Robbins actually made, I think I heard this story from him. He talks about the guy that's basic. Let's just take two distant situations. I'll make it short. So you have one person, we'll use public speaking because we've been using it the whole time. One person who loves public speaking and they're the performer, the pop star, they're the guy on the stage, it's like brings the house down. And the other person that's afraid of public speaking and is like literally deathly afraid of it, doesn't like it. So he like asks both of them, what are you feeling? What are you thinking about? Like, what's the thing that's going on? And so the person that's let's take the person that's afraid of public speaking and they're afraid to get in front of people because they're like, what they think of me. I want to make sure I do my best job. My hands are sweating, my heart's racing really fast, and I'm kind of like going like this. Like I'm really get excited. Like it's hard for me to like sit still. And they take that and they put a meaning to it. It's like I'm not good enough. I must not be able to do it. If I feel all these things, that means I'm really scared and I'm fearful, and I just don't have what it takes. Right? All those things, they'll take that and then they'll probably walk off the stage and say, "I just not for me."
Yeah.
Same, yes, the other person that's a performer, he does it for a living, he loves it. What's he feel? My hands are sweating, my palm, I'm going like this. I'm excited. I can't sit still. My heart's racing, it's pumping. I have the butterflies in my stomach. But the meaning he attaches to that is, I'm ready. Like this is it. Like it's the same feelings,
Yes.
different perspective, different result. And so it's a perfect example of what you're talking about. It's like how you perceive everything is your reality.
Yeah.
It's the truth. So it's literally the fundamental piece of building any type of success, no matter what field. How you perceive
Which
it will
you can
become.
see in my background, kind of. I have a mindset poster.
Oh yeah. I can see it. Yeah.
Dude, mindset's everything. Mindset, how you see things, your perception of the world, everything.
It's
Um,
funny, right? Because when I was a kid, and I'm probably you're the same way, I would always ask the successful people in my life that I had, or I'd always want to hear, like the 30 for 30s, like, hey, what makes you successful? And it was always like the simplest things. I was like, this is stupid. No, give me like the good stuff, like
yeah.
the things that no
Where's
one
the
else
cheat
knows.
code?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it was like it's all about mindset. It's all about consistency. It's all about just showing up. I'm like, bro, like of course, like you got to
Just
do
doing
that.
the work daily.
Yeah, exactly. But then you realize, like, no, I want the things that you don't tell anybody else. Like, give me the secrets. And the problem with that is once you start getting to some level of success, you're like, when someone asks you, you tell them the same things that they were telling you, and you're like, but in reality, it's that simple. Like it really is just get my mind right, because it's the perception. If I see it differently, I'm perform differently, and it's like a trickle down for all the little things. We want the Band-Aid for for the actual thing instead of the actual
We don't
piece
want to
of it
get the
we're creating.
sutures.
Yeah, right.
Just give me some super glue and a Band-Aid. I want it like right now, bro.
Yeah.
Don't suture this wound, man. That's gonna hurt.
Yeah, and then when some rain comes, it falls off. You're like, well, why did it fall apart? It was like,
Yeah.
because it's not even you, So
Yeah, absolutely. Taylor, this has been a fantastic conversation. We're coming up on the hour, and I want to be respectful of your time. I always ask my guests one last question, then we'll close it out. If you have the ability to sit down, break bread with, and learn from 3 individuals, and pick their brain and absorb anyone in history, alive or dead, who would those 3 individuals be and why?
Dang, that's a good question. So okay. So first one, I'm a believer. So my first one would be I'd love to sit and break bread with Jesus.
Okay.
Ask him questions. Ask him like basically the meanings of all the things that made me think like, well, why is this? Why is it like that?
He would probably ask you more questions.
Probably,
you ask
right?
a question, then he'd ask you a question back, and you'd be like, you start talking, and he'd be like,
right. The question is usually the answer. It's kind of one of those deals.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be the first person. Just for a multitude of reasons. The second person, man, it's funny enough. The reason how I got connected to even Ryan Stewman is a multitude of ways. So 2 people in my life was Steve Weatherford, and also Ed Milet. And I was in the Dallas area, and I was reaching out to Ed, and I was talking to Steve. I was like, "This is what I want to do. This is what I want to be around someone that's successful, like someone that gets it, that's a good person, and it's not just beyond business, right? But also at the same time, they're really good in business, and they know what they're doing in a lot of different levels." And that's how Ed connected me to Ryan, because I was actually, funny enough, I was literally right across the tollway from where I worked for insurance, like literally right across the street. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he told me, I looked him up, got connected, and I was like, "Where are you at?" And he's like, I'm right here in his old office in Addison. I was like, "No freaking way. Like, that's literally right across the street, like under 3 minutes away from me."
Yeah.
And so that's how I got connected. But at the time, that's what it was. The other person was, and thankfully Apex has helped me meet a lot of those people. That's why it's hard for me to pick the other 2, because I'm getting to meet those people right now. But I would say in history, outside of the first one I mentioned, man, it would probably be like Alexander the Great would be pretty sweet. Just the thought process of how he moved and operated, and he basically took over a lot of the world at the time. But that takes a general mentality to where the leadership effect, I think, would be another one. Man, if I had time, I don't know what the other one would be. I could give you a ton of them, but I don't know if that'd be that one, right? It'd be cool to spend time with John Maxwell would be another one. It's leadership aspects of things, like sitting times, like, hey, like he's author of basically leadership, wrote more things on publications on leadership. Would be cool to spend time with him.
Yeah.
I could go on and on with the list of people. Obviously, Ed would be another one. I could spend more time with him. I'm going to talk on the phone with him, which is how I got connected to Ryan, but be able to spend more even time with him, sit down and talk. So there's a lot of people in the Rolodex that would love to. And thankfully, one of them was Ryan Stewman, but I'm getting to do that every day. So it's nice in that respect. But yeah, that's kind of what I would have to say off the top of my head.
It's good, man. I like it. You're very leadership. All of them are very leadership focused, which I think is fantastic.
I think, yeah, leadership, what I've learned, I don't know if it's from reading John Maxwell stuff, but leadership not only is outward, it's inward. So if I have to lead myself well, like that's how consistency makes sense. That's how discipline makes sense. If I don't lead myself well, then I can't lead anybody else well. If I can't lead anybody else well, then I'm not, my dreams are only as big as my team or my teams, right? So if I ever want to do anything big and my mindset's huge, then I have to have people in my life that are going to support me and help me at the same time and help achieve their dreams too. But I can't do that if I don't lead myself well, because then how am I going to teach them what I did and I'm not leading well? That's not going to make sense. They're going to,
you can't do it. People think that you can. because
Yeah,
when you get the position right, when you get the piece of
yeah,
paper,
yeah. When you get the CEO title, you'll know how to be a leader. That's not how it works.
it does not. No, you'll still fuck it up.
Right, because people won't follow people that can't lead themselves, that don't know where they're going, that don't have those qualities. They'll just be like, "Why am I following you? I know more than you. I'm more confident than you." Like there's it this doesn't it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's just there's so many elements to that's why the whole Alexander the Great would be because he led armies, like all these. Actually, the other third one would be Solomon. That'd be another one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Okay.
because the richest man that ever lived, that'd probably be another one. Just
Yeah.
because he had both. So just
Solomon,
obviously
Solomon was a pimp, bro.
operating.
So
Yeah, right. So a lot of different things from the avenue of how to structure and lead effectively, not multiple people, but yourself internally too. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for jumping on the Be the Difference podcast. This has been awesome. If anyone wants to like just follow you, what's the best place where they can follow you and learn more about
um,
you?
yeah, either Instagram or Facebook. Obviously, type my name in Facebook or Instagram's at TSym. So it's TSYMM. It's where you can follow me.
Awesome. Awesome. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. Thank you so much for watching. I need your help. All we want to do is take about 60 seconds to rate, review, subscribe, share this content. This has been massively valuable. I know it has if you're watching till now. We went over so much between mindset, between sales processes, law of attraction, everything under the sun, really. And that's how we grow this content is by word of mouth, is by you sharing this content. So you can help out Apex, Taylor, myself, just by taking 60 seconds of your time, and we'd appreciate it. So this has been the Be the Difference podcast. My name's Greg Birch, your host. Until next time, we'll see you. Deuces.